Now, one thing that's common in many of these is the way we tend to run projects. Now, project management is a buzzword. Project has always been there. I think we can go back to probably the creation of the Earth in 7 days. That was probably a project. Then there was the pyramids, and etc., etc. But the science of project management started around about 1939. The first one was the Manhattan Project, for those who are familiar with the Manhattan, the first atom bomb. But project management has always been there, whether you call it project management or not. And success means different things to different people. It can be way over budget, way over time, and ultimately deliver, and will be deemed as success. A typical example of that is the Opera House. Now, statistics kind of dictates how we manage. Now, what are the perils? The best way is lessons learned. If you look at case studies, let's take focus on technology projects. Disasters in Australia, CS90 from Westpac in the early 80s, unfortunately I was part of that disaster. ERG, anybody familiar with ERG up in Balcatta who did the New South Wales smart card technology implementation? That was an utter disaster. It was canned in 2008, ended up in court, and ERG had to pay millions of dollars to the New South Wales government. And of course, internationally, actually another Australian one was the implementation of software in all the ports of Australia in 2008, which was an utter disaster, put the ports out for 3 weeks out of action. Now if you kind of look at those projects, why are they so disastrous? Yet, we tend to do a lot of technical projects. Right? It's also ironic that if you look at the ages, you know, we go through the agricultural age, industrial age, and we're supposedly in the information age. We have a lot of data but no information. That's sort of ironic in that way as well. Yet, technical projects is the worst of them all. Okay, it's the youngest. The deliverables are normally intangible, and that is probably another aspect to it. But the information age is a very short-lived age. Most people think we're going into what's called the sustainability age. I don't know who makes up these names, but well, that's where we're moving towards. So the ages are getting shorter. But if you look at projects, we tend to move most of the work we do are projects. Having a Christmas party is a project. Planning a wedding is a project. Gorgon is a project. Browse is a project. Now, what I want to do is focus on the technology part of it. Now, I could do that. I normally break that up into 3 pieces. Because normally technical people just focus on the technicalities. Right? But actually, there's 3 pieces to it. There's the people, the process, and the tools. If you look at a lot of project managers who focus on the IT world, focuses on the technical side. They don't focus on the other 2. And normally when you start doing that, that's one of the reasons why technical projects don't go too well. Most times if you talk to the technical people, has your project been successful? They'll say yes. But then talk to the customers, the end users, and they'll say no. It's like, you know, when husband paints the bathroom, comes out to a wife and says, honey, I'm done. Honey says, let me see. Honey goes into the bathroom, comes out and says, no, you're not done. All right, finished painting. She says, no, you haven't cleaned up. From whose perspective is success? Technical projects are similar. When our software is up on a screen, up and running, according to IT, according to technical people, it's done. According to the end users, I can't use it, I haven't been trained, I don't understand it. And that's probably because they're missing the other 2 parts, the people and the process. Now, in terms of personally, I spend a lot of time these days in what's called unpredictable projects. And that's probably because of my nature, I enjoy doing things. Now, you find project managers who are good at unpredictable projects, and a lot of project managers who are good at predictable projects. It's very rare to find somebody good at both. It's the same like if you have a CEO who runs a Fortune 500 company, will he be any good in a startup? And vice versa. A CEO or people who like to do startups, are they any good in running a Fortune 500 company? The same for projects. What type of project have you got? Predictable or unpredictable? Does the project manager fit that category? There is no such thing as an IT project. Why not? Because any technical project is there to support the business. You're doing it for a business reason. And as soon as project managers or technical project managers in the IT world start to understand that fact, that it's not an IT project, it's a business project, technical projects will probably be more successful. And as soon as we hold technical project managers accountable for that fact, then probably technical projects will be more successful. Because most people think, well, if I have my network up and running, I have software up on a screen, it's working, done, successful. But our end user says, no, I don't know how to use it. By the way, there's only two industries where we use the term users for any, and that's the IT industry and the drug industry. So, what I want to do is move on to the project management aspect of it. Now, one other thing we tend to overlook, there's a food chain, believe it or not, in project management. If you take a triangle, let's take a typical example, oil and gas or resource sector at the moment. Food chain, break that food chain into 3 pieces. The top tier of companies are the Woodsiders, the Rios, the Chevrons, the Apaches, etc., etc. The middle tier are your EPCM or EPC contractors. The bottom tier are your sub-suppliers, etc. If you're a project manager in the top tier, your mandate is different as a project manager in the middle tier as opposed to at the bottom tier. Because at the top tier, on your project you spend a lot of money to ultimately make money. In the middle tier, that project you're running is you want to make money from that. In the bottom tier, you want to make money from what you're supplying at that moment. So your mandate is different. That's why it's always a good idea if you're in a top tier to bring people in to your organization that has probably spent some time in that middle tier and vice versa. Because the understandings are different. Now, if you take that top tier, we're talking about technology, a lot of times these days, BHP, Rios push their technology onto their middle tier customers. This is the system we want to use. This is the process we want to use, etc. And normally they run around with their heads cut off. Well, how do we do that? Let's get some training in MS Project. Why? Because Rio insists we have to know MS Project or Primavera, etc. So these are the challenges coming into. So there is a food chain. So you find there's a lot of lessons where you are in the food chain. Right? We tend to also run projects. We tend to do. We think we're doing very well at it. But then we tend to overlook the culture of the organization. It's amazing how many, if you take an organizational culture, how it can make or break a project manager. If you come from a mature project management organization to say an immature organization, you know, the grass is greener on the other side scenario. You come in with your, coming from, say, an organization that has methodologies, frameworks, etc. So you come into an organization that has none of those. If you don't manage that very well, the culture is going to work against you. Now finally, what I would like to focus on is probably trying to put technology into organizations to support the project managers for the business units. Now, we tend to have a project PMO office, we have a project controls office, we have a project management office, and people are totally confused amongst all of them. How many organizations do you know? Actually, IT, one good thing about IT, they're one of the first to actually start up a PM office. Now normally, a PM office starts in the IT area, and they will focus purely on IT projects. That's a big positive for them. But when they're trying to roll that out into the business world, then the business says, no, it's from IT, heresy, we don't touch it, go away. And then what happens normally in the business world, they'll start up a PMO office as well. And at some point, there's 2 PM offices. And then there's this whole debate of fight. Do we go Prince 2? Do we go PMBOK? What methodology do we? And there's this fight. And eventually, of course, the business world wins always. And IT just go back into that corner. Now, in terms of setting up technology for a PM office or to support project management. Now, if you look at some of the major projects that are going, we have Gorgon going at the moment. We have Wheatstone going at the moment. We're talking oil and gas now. Browse probably looks like it's going to happen in January, February. The word is that's possibly what's going to happen. The final investment decision to be made in February. It looks like it's going to go. And then we have Sunrise from... Now all of these, first of all, we lack people. That's the first thing. Secondly, how many of these, each one of these projects are businesses in itself. And each one have their own technology they want to put in. Now, if you kind of look at the technology, if we, for example, implement Primavera, Enterprise Primavera, how many of that is actually successful? We debate about timesheets, We debate about what the dashboard should look like. We debate on who signs off, who can see what plans, schedules do we show the customer, what we don't sell the customer. We don't have two plans, one for the customer and one for ourselves. How do you manage that? You have to remember what your line normally